I'm Lynne Sharber, and I'm in Sandy Foster's TCH 520 class on brain-based learning. I teach first grade in Oklahoma City, and this is a presentation I could give to my first grade team summarizing a conference I attended on differentiation and engagement. What is differentiation? It's a buzzword we sometimes hear about in the field of education, but let's figure out what it really means. Simply put, differentiation is responsive teaching or tailoring instruction to the specific needs of each student and how they learn best. Educators who incorporate neuroscience findings into their teaching strategies can design lessons that align with natural brain functions, which enhances student comprehension and memory and learning results. Now, researchers have found 5 components that make up differentiation. The first one is content, or what you're teaching. You might have to choose multiple texts or different topics. The second component is process, or the instructional strategy that you use to deliver the content. So you can think about ways to change up your instructional strategies like whole group, small group, technology-based, game-based. The third component is the product itself, how students show their learning. You can tap into a lot of creativity and resourcefulness if you change the product. Students could show their learning by writing a paper or making an art project or adding to a Padlet. The fourth component of differentiation is the classroom environment. Are your students sitting? Are they standing? What works best for them? Are they sitting by a friend? Are they by themselves? There are a lot of variance in how you can help students with their classroom environment. The fifth component is the teacher's role. So instead of the teacher being the only one to deliver content, they can also be a facilitator or like a knowledge coach, something like that, that's inspiring the students to be lifelong learners and not just students in the classroom. So we've talked about some examples of differentiation, but let's really drill down and talk about specific strategies we can use for differentiation in our first grade classrooms. The first strategy I want to talk about is mind mapping. We know from learning about how the brain retains information that making connections is essential to forming the memories. Mind mapping helps the students do that. So it's a picture that starts with a central idea and then it branches out from there. We're going to have to do a lot of modeling in our classrooms on how to do this before the students can take it on themselves. But when you add colors and lines between the ideas, then you're building more connections, which strengthens your memory and your capacity to learn. And it could be used for pre-writing, it could be used for number sense, for science experiments, and you can connect information between subjects. The second strategy I want to talk about is kinesthetic movement. Instead of just lecturing or telling your students things, let's act it out. It's more fun, and it keeps them awake and activated. It has the added benefit of helping them stay focused too. When you incorporate movements that cross the midline, you're activating both hemispheres of the brain, so processing of information is even easier. This one always makes me think about when I teach my students, a digraph is 2 consonants that make 1 sound. At my conference, we also talked a lot about engagement, and it's really multidimensional in our classrooms. So as we discuss it, I want you to listen for how it's related to differentiation. There's a lot of crossover between the 2 topics, which of course helps us remember them better. Engagement involves how invested the students are and their level of interaction and their readiness to learn. However, it's not just something that magically happens. Teachers must plan for student engagement through activities that hold their interest and make their learning apply to real life. We know through studying brain-based learning that engagement is essential for memories to form. Let's talk a little bit more about the 3 core types of engagement. The first one is behavioral. They can show that they're engaged in learning by their participation and their effort. The second one is emotional engagement. This category involves the students' feelings. Do they belong? Are they interested? Do they feel connected? And then cognitive engagement is, do they understand what they're learning? Do they want to know more? Can they connect it to other topics? Also, engagement is not static. We have to plan for it constantly. Once we've engaged them, we got to keep engaging them. The first strategy we can talk about to get students more engaged is the thoughtful use of technology. It can be really engaging for students if we use it properly. It can tap into all those 3 core types of engagement, but it should be used as a review instead of a primary source of instruction. But students can be very excited and engaged over review games or making presentations to show what they know. We need to really think about planning carefully when we use technology in our classrooms, though. We need to keep in mind FERPA and the inherent dangers of some platforms. But it can be a really efficient way to evaluate, review, and engage students when done with care. The second strategy I want to talk about for engagement is the balance of structure and autonomy. Good classroom management often involves structure, while poor classroom management can turn into chaos. Students can become more engaged with a bit of autonomy in their day. So teachers have to seek a balance so that chaos doesn't take over. If students only get to follow the exact directions, they find it boring, and they won't have any of those 3 core areas engaged. But if they get to show what they know, like what they've learned in an activity of their choice, their engagement is going to skyrocket. Some appropriate autonomous choices for our first graders would be writing a letter to a friend, building an example of what you learned out of Lego bricks, or recording a video of talking points. As long as the students feel they have some choices along with some structure, student engagement will be higher. Now, can you see how those engagement strategies also relate to differentiation? I sure can. If you're interested in learning more about differentiation and engagement strategies, here are the resources that I used. Thanks for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have thought about some ways to incorporate differentiation and engagement in your first grade classrooms. Anytime you want to brainstorm with me or have more thoughts on the topic, let's work together. Thanks.